vow of celibacy 3 years ago at my best friend's bachelorette party had been a running joke within my friend circle ever since. However, recently, I wondered if I'd actually cursed myself that night. How can you not find him attractive? Melissa's stern question, followed by a long, loud sigh, made me hold the phone away from my ear, but not so far away that I missed Marissa's frustrated follow-up. I mean, he's a mountain climber. He literally climbs mountains. He uses his Instagram influencer account to raise money for animal shelters. He volunteers with at-risk youth. He's a sexy beast with a kind heart. What is wrong with him? Mason says he's a great cook. A great cook, Emerson. Mason was Marissa's husband as of 3 years ago, and the he my best friend referenced was a partner at Mason's law firm, a Mr. Edward Wallace Rothford Chesterfield VII, Esquire. She was right. Mr. Edward Wallace Rothford Chesterfield VII, Esquire, was a sexy beast, and he was most definitely impressive, and yet also very blah. Lifting my wrist, I pushed away a few tickling strands of hair. Careful not to get paint on my forehead, I angled the paintbrush away. He has too many names. I screwed up my face, the excuse sounding lame even to me. How am I supposed to remember all his names? That's a lot of pressure. Too many names, she echoed, sounding robotic. A stretch of silence followed, during which I set the brush on the open paint can, stood from where I'd been sitting painting the trim of the kitchen, and struggled to find the words to explain that clearly there was something wrong with me. Clearly I had cursed myself, but not with that drunken vow of celibacy. Rather, my curse, the reason for it, was the Who, not the band. Turns out I didn't need to find the words because Marissa, as usual, gave voice to my thoughts. Emerson, you haven't heard from him in 3 years. Now I sighed, closing my eyes. I know. You need to let him go. I know, I said. You've cut yourself off from the world, alone in that cabin in the middle of nowhere, remodeling it for over 2 years, and I'm almost finished, I said. The tile is finally done, and all that's left is the paint. A loud knock on my front door had me turning my head towards the sound, even as I frowned in confusion as to who it might be. I welcomed the unexpected interruption. Listen, I have to go. Someone is here. Someone is there? Really? You couldn't come up with a better excuse? A rabid raccoon, perhaps? I laughed. No, really. Someone is at the door. Who could it be? She asked. Do you want me to stay on the phone until you see who it is? Nah, it's probably my neighbor checking on me. They drive into town every week to pick up supplies. I wiped my hand off on the rag sticking out from my pocket and glanced down at myself, figuring my tank top and overalls would just have to be okay.
My pulse raced, and I had no idea why. It wasn't as if I'd been in complete isolation the entire time I'd been in my cabin. I'd spoken to people, I'd thanked delivery people, and had gone out when needed. Someone knocking at my door wasn't an unusual concept, and yet something told me this wasn't going to be my drunken prime box of whatever I'd bought the few nights before. I didn't have a peephole, so I opened the door, my eyes widening as I took in exactly who was in front of me. It was as if I conjured the man right out of my thoughts, and I only had Marissa to blame. This had to be her fault, because the man in front of me with the chiseled jawline and the bedroom eyes that did horrible things to me wasn't a stranger, and he wasn't my delivery man. Emerson. The deep voice went straight to places I wasn't going to talk about. I mean, it had been 3 years of celibacy. Needs had been met, but dear goddess, that voice, I knew that voice. It was so familiar and yet not. How did you find me? I asked, my palms damp. I've always been able to find you, Emerson. Well, now I was apparently living in a horror rom-com, and I needed to wake up from whatever dream had latched itself around me. What the heck do you mean? Seriously, why are you here? I paused, worry crawling all over me. Is someone hurt? Are they hurt? I need to talk to you, Emerson. He paused, his eyes narrowing even as he leaned toward me. Please. What's wrong? You know what's wrong, Em. You've always known, and now we need to fix it. And then Hayden Marcus James Chesterfield, the first, walked past me and into my cabin. Mr. Edward Wallace Rawford Chesterfield's the 7th Esquire's brother.
No, stop. No, you can't just walk into this place after everything that went down. And I started, but he quickly cut me off. Whiskey? He asked, wandering towards the kitchen. I sighed, annoyed that I was somewhat happy to see him. And pissed off. Yes, I was beyond pissed off because I knew him showing up to talk to me meant one thing and one thing only. My parents were in danger. Whiskey, he repeated, sounding oddly calm for the situation at hand. Geez, what was the situation at hand? I needed more answers, and I knew Hayden wasn't going to give me what I needed until I gave him his request. Left cabinet, second shelf, I muttered, following his previous footsteps. Of course there was whiskey in my cabin. There was always whiskey. Before Hayden Marcus James Chesterfield entered my life, I prided myself on being a vodka girl. But after meeting him all those years ago, I knew I needed something stronger to keep me going. Vodka made me flirty. Whiskey made me wise. One thing I knew about being around Hayden was that I needed my brain to be focused and I needed my heart to be on mute. I see you splurged for the good stuff, he smirked. And damn, I hated how I loved that smirk. Good girl. Let's skip the small talk, hey? Why are you here? He brushed his hand against his chiseled jawline and a weighted sigh rippled through his lips. It's your parents. My heart tried to escape from my chest as those words fell from his mouth. They're in danger, I pushed out, recalling the mistake Hayden and I made years ago to put them in a terrible, life-altering situation. No, worse. He plopped down on my sofa and took a long, dramatic sip from his glass. They're pregnant. Congratulations, sweetheart. You're going to be a big sister. Shut up, Hayden. Really, what's happening? If I told you now, you'd think I was lying, so go grab yourself a drink. He patted the cushion beside him and gave me a sinister smile. And make it a double, because we are about to head out of this damn cabin for good.
Primo, I said, calling him by his birth order. I picked up my phone. You're being dramatic, and I'm just going to call them. He stood and with the speed of a cobra snapped my phone away. Hey, asshole. Gatina, he hissed between his teeth as he put his rigid index finger between our faces. Don't you kitten me, you! I slapped his hand away, and before I could say another word, he bent at the waist and scooped me up, throwing me over his shoulder like a rag doll. I watched the little cabin I'd renovated get smaller in the distance as he walked to the end of the driveway. Let me go, I cried, bouncing harder against his shoulder and pounding his back, my blows falling on rock-hard muscle. Basta, he said, just as I felt the sting of his hand slapping my ass. Ow! He slapped me 3 times, bringing the heat between my legs to the surface of my skin. You can slap me all you want. I know. He slapped again, harder than the times before, then stroked my ass before grabbing it as if he owned it. I'm not sleeping with you. I was thrown through the air, landing with a thud in the passenger seat of a white Monte Carlo custom convertible I'd lost my virginity in. Primo got behind the wheel and reached over me to yank the seatbelt. Buckle in, Gatina. He snapped the buckle home. Sette just broke the cardinal rule. Sette was his brother. Edward, the 7th. The guy, my best friend, not knowing who I really was, had tried to set me up with. Omerta? I said incredulously. Does he want to get himself killed? No. He turned the key in the car and started with a roar. He wants to get your mother's bambina killed. He draped his arm over the seat, twisted around, and backed on my driveway at full speed.